Let's practice finding the missing coordinate of a given point when we have the distance between two ordered pairs. So for number 1, we have point A, which is located at -6, n. We're missing the y coordinate. And we also have B, which is at -6, +2. And we know the distance between these 2 points is 5 units. We're going to go ahead and see what possible values n could be. So we can't plot point A because we don't know the value of n, but we can start with plotting where point B is. Now point B is going to be located at -6, 2, which is really just 6 units to the left and then 2 units up, so maybe something like this. We can go ahead and label that as point B. And then if we're going to go ahead and try to figure out where point A would go, first just notice that we have matching x values. Seeing as we have matching x values here of -6 and -6, that means these 2 points are going to be vertical from each other or on top of each other. So let's go ahead and identify where point A could go. Since we have matching x coordinates of -6, we know that n has to be above or below this 2. Now we have 2 for this y value, right? And we know that the distance between this 2 and n has to be 5 units. So if we go up 5 units, that's one possibility where we could plot point A. Or if we go down 5 units, that's going to be another possibility where we could plot point A. So if we go 5 units up, this could be one of our A values. We'll call that A1 maybe, or it could be A2. Okay, so there's 2 possibilities. Now, if we go 5 units up from 2, that means we're going to be going 5 plus 2, that's going to equal 7. So we can say that n could possibly equal 7. That could be one of its values. Or if we take 2 and then we take away 5 from it, then n could equal -3. Okay, so those would be the 2 values. And if that was true, we could go ahead and say that A1 then, its point would be located at -6, 7. That's one possibility. Or if we have our second possibility of where A could be located, it would be at -6, -3. Okay, so these would be the 2 values of n that we could possibly have. That would be 5 units away that has the same matching x coordinate of -6. Let's look at number 2. For number 2, we have point C, which is going to be located at n, 5. So we're looking for this x coordinate this time. And we have point D, which is located at -3, 5. We know both coordinates of point D, so we can start by plotting that one first. So if we go ahead and plot point D, that's going to be located at -3, 5, so 3 to the left, and then maybe 5 units up, something like this. And that's where we're going to start off by plotting point D. And now let's figure out where we could possibly find point C. Now, notice right away that we have matching y coordinates here of 5. So when they have matching y coordinates, we know that these 2 points, C and D, have to be left and right of each other. That being said, we now know that point C has to be somewhere on this horizontal line, left or to the right of point D. Now let's notice what was the non-matching number. So we have this -3 here, okay? And we need to go 7 units to the left of it and 7 units to the right of it. So if we move from this -3 and we move 7 units this way to the right, that's one possibility for point C. So point C maybe could be located over here to the right, and that would be point C, or one of the C possibilities. Or we could move 7 units to the left from point D, maybe somewhere over here, and that would be our second possible C values. We can call that one maybe C2. Now if point D was located at -3 and we move 7 units to the left, now 7 units to the left of -3 is going to be at -10, so we can say that n could possibly equal -10 if we were moving to the left. And then if we took this point D at -3 and moved 7 units to the right, well, if we move 7 units to the right, we're going to end up in the positives at +4. So n would equal +4. That would be the other possibility. So now that we know the 2 possible n values, we could say that C could be located at +4, +5. That's this one over here in quadrant 1, or other possible locations for point C, C2, would be located in quadrant 2, which would be this -10, +5, which is really this dot over here to the left. Okay, so these would be our 2 possibilities, and we just found the 2 possible values for n, which is 4 and -10. For number 3, we have point A, which is going to be at 6, 4, and we also have point B, which is going to be 6, n, so we're missing a y coordinate. Okay, so right away we can plot point A since we know the x and the y coordinates for it. So let's go ahead and do that first. So 6 to the right of the origin, and then we're going to move 4 units up, maybe something like this. That's going to be point A over in quadrant 1. Okay, then we're going to notice and see what kind of matching values they have. So looks like they have x coordinates that match. They have 6 and 6. So again, if they have matching x coordinates, then we know these 2 points are going to be vertical from each other. Alrighty, so we know these 2 points are going to be on top of each other or above and below. We know A is located at a height of 4, and we know that N must be 9 units above it or 9 units below it. So one possibility is we can move 9 units up, and we go ahead and plot one of our possible B values. I'll call this one B1 perhaps, okay? And then for our other B value, it has to be below it. So let's go ahead and say that B2, or second possibility for where B could be, would be down here in quadrant 4, okay? So how do we go ahead and say what that's going to be? Well, one of our possibilities is if we go up 9 units. So if we're at 4 here, right, and we move up 9, well, 4 plus 9 is going to be 13. So we could say, yes, N could be equal to 13 if we went up. And then N could also be, well, if we start here at 4, again, that's where A is located. And if we move 9 units down, well, if we start at 4 and move 9 units down, we would then be at -5. So that would be the other possibility for what N could equal. Okay, so we now know the 2 possibilities for N. So if we went upwards to find where B1 could be located, that one would be 6, 13. That's if we went up. And then for the second possibility for B or B2, that's going to be 6, and that's going to be -5, and that's if we went down to quadrant 4, going down 9 units. For number 4, we have point C, which is -1, -4, and point D, which is going to be N, -4. So we're missing this X coordinate for point D. We know both coordinates for point C, so let's start with that one. That's going to be -1, -4. So let's go ahead and start at the origin, move 1 to the left, and then 4 down, maybe something like this, and label that as point C. And then for point D, let's go ahead and notice that they have matching Y coordinates between point C and D. So notice they have these matching Y's of -4. And if they have matching Y's, that means these 2 points, C and D, are going to be left and right of each other. All right, so point D has to be somewhere along this horizontal line, left or right of point C, because they have matching Y values. That always is going to happen. And let's take a look at this -1. If we take a look at this -1 that C has here, that's really what we're going to be trying to move 2 units away from. Okay, so one possibility is we could be at -1 and move 2 units to the right. That would be over here somewhere, and we could call this one point D. This would maybe be one of our possibilities for point D. And we could also move 2 units to the left. That's another possibility. If we go ahead and put a point there, that would be D, our second D possibility, or point D2. Okay, something like that would be just fine. Those are 2 possibilities. All right, so for D1, let's see, if we started at -1 here and moved 2 units to the right, we should be at +1. So then N would equal +1 if we went 2 units to the right. But then what if we were at -1 and moved 2 units to the left? That should bring us to -3. So N could also equal -3. Now that we know the 2 possibilities for point D, we can go ahead and say that D1's ordered pair would be at +1, -4. That would be this one over here in quadrant 4. But our other possibility for point D is if we went to the left. If we went to the left, we'd end up in quadrant 3, which is going to be -3, -4. And that would be this point located over here. That is to the left of point C. So there you can see these are the 2 possibilities for N that we found. Okay, I think we can go ahead and highlight those maybe for number 3 as well, that we found out that N could be 13 or -5. So make sure we identify those as well. And let's try number 5 now. For number 5, we have point A, which is at -3, N. So we're missing a Y value here. And we have point B, which is at -3, -2. Let's start off and plot point B, which is going to be located at -3, -2, since we have both of those values, and start at the origin. That's 3 units to the left and then 2 units down, maybe something like this. That would be where point B is located. Go ahead and put a B there. And then let's go ahead and see what matches. So we have a -3 for point A. We also have a -3 for point B. Based on that, we can see that they have matching X values. If that's true, that means that these 2 points are going to be vertical of each other, or above and below. All right, so now that we know they're above and below each other, so we know that this value is going to be -2. So we need to go 4 units above it and 4 units below it. So if we're at -2 here, what if we move 4 units above it? Well, if we move 4 units above, then we would be in quadrant 2. This would be a possibility for A, so I'll call this maybe A1. And then another possibility is we could move 4 units down instead. So if we move 4 units down, we would still be in this quadrant 3, and this would be our second possibility for where A could be. All right, so let's go ahead and identify what N has a possibility of being. So again, we're at -2, which is located here. If we move up 4 units, 1, 2, 3, 4, we should be at +2 now. So that's one of the possibilities for n. And then for our second possibility, well, let's say we're starting at -2 again, which is right here, and we move down 4 units. Well, if you're at -2 and you move down 4, we should be at -6 now. So those are the two possibilities for n, and we can go ahead and use that information and say, well, now that we know what n is, then a could be possibly located at -3, +2. That would be over here in quadrant 2. Or the second possibility for a, or a sub 2, that would be down in quadrant 3 still, and that's going to be -3, -6. So that's if we went down, that would be this point located over here. So we just found out that n could be 2, or n could be -6. For number 6, we have point C, which is going to be at 6, n, so we're missing a y value. And then we have point D, which is at 6, -7. For point D, we have its x and y coordinates, so we can start with that. We can go ahead and plot. This is going to be 6, -7. So start at the origin, move 6 units to the right, and then move 7 units down. So a little bit further down, maybe something like that. We can call that point D. Okay, and then let's go ahead and see if we can identify what to do with point C. Now point C, we can notice, and point D have a common x value of 6, right? So if they both have 6 here, we know that these 2 points are going to be vertical from each other. All right, so they had matching x values, so they are vertical from each other, or above and below. Let's look at this -7, and let's go ahead and move 1 unit in each direction. So if we're at -7, that's where D is. We could move 1 unit up. That's one possibility. And so that's where this point C could be. So we call this maybe C1. And then we could also move down 1 unit as well. So that can be our C2. All right, so C1 and C2, the two possibilities are going to be very close to point D. Okay, and so if we are starting off at this -7, right, and we move up 1 unit, then we should be at -6. So that's one possibility for n. N could equal -6. And then if we start here again at -7, instead of moving up, let's move down 1. That would be at -8. So we can say n equals -8. Okay, so again, -6 and -8 are both 1 away from -7. So what are the coordinates here? Well, C1, one possibility could be at 6, let's go with -6. That's if we went up a little bit. And then for C2, that's if we went down a little bit. That's going to be 6, -8. So we just found out that this -6 and -8 would be the two possibilities for what n could be. All right, let's check out number 7. For number 7, we have point A, which is at 5, -3, and point B, which is located at n, -3, and we're missing the x coordinate for point B. Now point A, we're given information saying it's at 5, -3, so that's going to be over starting at the origin. We can move 5 units to the right and then 3 units down, so it would be over here in quadrant 4. So that's going to be where A is located. And let's see if B is going to be above it and below it, or to the left and to the right. Let's go ahead and see they have matching y values of -3. So if their y values match, that tells us these 2 points are going to be left and right of each other. All right, so we do have this value of 5. That's where we're starting from, and we have to move 8 units to the left of it and then 8 units to the right of it. So if we move 8 units to the right, we would go this way. And one possible value, this could be where B is, that we could call maybe B1. And we could also move 8 units to the left as well. So if we move 8 units to the left, that would be going this way. And we could plot a point. That would be another possibility for B. We'll call that one B2. Okay. Now, if we're starting at 5 here and we're moving 8 units to the right, that's really just 5 plus 8. So that's going to be 13. So one possible value for n would be 13. But then over here, we could say if we started at 5, we move 8 to the left, then 5 take away 8 would be -3. So n would equal -3. That's our second n possibility. Based on that, B1 could be located to the right of it. If it was located to the right of it, it would be 13, -3. That's one possibility. And the other value for B, if we move to the left of it, would be located at -3, -3. That's going to be over in quadrant 3 instead, though. Again, the two values we found out for n were 13 and -3. Finally, for number 8, we have point C, which is located at -1, -3, as well as point D, which is -1, n. N is what we're looking for, so we're missing a y coordinate. Let's start with point C, just because we know the x and the y coordinate here. So we can go ahead and put this point. It's going to start at the origin, move to the 1 left, and then 3 down, maybe something like this. We can call that point C. And then let's see what kind of matching values they have. Well, they have matching x values here of -1 and -1, which means that these 2 points must be vertical or above and below each other. All right, so we know that point D has to be above or below this one. And let's see, we have this -3 and we really just have to move 6 above it or 6 below it. So if we're at -3 and we move up 6, that's one possibility. We can move all the way up here, and this would be where D could be. So we'll call this maybe D1, that's one possibility. Or we're starting at this -3 and we could move down 6. So we move down 6 from it, we would now have another possible location where D could be. We'll call that one D2. All right, so let's think about this for a moment. But if we're starting off at -3 and we move up 6, then that's going to bring us to the positives. That'll be +3. That's where we're located, right? Another way to think about this is for our second value for D, if we're at -3 here and we move down 6, we should now be at -9. So we should be even more negative. So those are the two possibilities, right? Now we can go ahead and say, okay, D1, if we went up here, then D's coordinates would be located at -1, 3. That's if we went up. And then for our second possible D location, if we went down, it would be at -1, -9, right? So D1 here is going to be located over here in quadrant 2, and then D2 would be located down here in quadrant 3 if we went down 6 instead of up 6 units. So there you have 8 different practice problems on finding a missing coordinate for these 2 points given a distance. And so go ahead and try to see where we have matching coordinates, and then once you see what we have matching, then the missing points could either be to the left and right or above and below. And then we just really have to move a certain distance away to the left or to the right or above and below. So hopefully you found this video helpful, and as always, keep up the great work, and I'll see you in the next one.